Everything I do is a strategic move. Welcome to the Lawyer Millionaire, helping law firm owners grow their businesses and their wealth. I'm your host, Darren Wurz. What does it really take to build a thriving modern law firm while staying true to your core values? If you're a law firm owner looking to grow, lead effectively, and build an asset, not just a job, this episode will speak directly to you. Today's guest is Ariana Tadler, founding partner of Tadler Law LLP. With over 3 decades of experience and a national reputation in complex litigation and e-discovery, she's not just a legal powerhouse, she's a business builder with a powerful leadership philosophy. All right, Ariana, we're happy and excited that you're here today with us and to learn from your great wisdom and experience. Thanks for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really an honor, and I've loved watching how the podcast has evolved. It's very exciting.
Yeah, well, thanks for being a listener. We really appreciate it. So you are really a rock star. I've read your resume, and you're just fantastic. So we're really excited. I want to go back a little bit to the beginning. How did you get started in law, and what made you decide to launch your own firm?
Oh, that's a 3-decade plus journey. It's actually almost a 4.5-decade journey, and I'll give you the short version. So I knew I wanted to become a lawyer from the time I was 13. That's out there in the public domain and some other interviews, and I need not bore you about why at 13. Let's just say that I grew up in a family where robust dialogue and maybe even debate were things that were pretty commonplace, and one didn't come to the dinner table without being really prepared on a topic that was, on trend or a current event, et cetera. And wow. I was really, I think, uniquely positioned among my peers leaving high school and going into college in that I already knew that was my path. And so while, of course, college is a fun time and it's a critical time for many, I don't think college is for everybody, by the way. It is something that you need to do, at least here in the United States, in order to then pursue a career in law and to get to law school. And ultimately, I went to Fordham Law. I'm a absolutely dedicated Ram. I love Fordham Law School. I think it's a phenomenal program that they offer. And I absolutely loved all of law school, which is also probably very odd. Most people find law school to be very challenging, sure, exhausting, etc. I found it to be really inspiring. I loved my classes. I really enjoyed the process. And it really put me in a very encouraged state of mind to think about all of the possibilities. At that time, which would have been in the early 90s when I was graduating from law school, people were familiar with things like LA Law and some of the other TV programs, and that's what they thought the practice of law was like. And so also most people who were graduating from law school were thinking big firm mentality, that's where you go, or you go to the government. And I had a lot of opportunities actually to work even before I was in law school, and then even before I had graduated, in a variety of places. I interned for a judge here in Nassau County. I worked for a major law firm. And so by the time I was in my second year looking for a position, I landed a position at a medium-sized, at that time, small-sized plaintiff's firm, and was just there to do a summer associate position and just fell in love with the practice and also with the people. And the firm's practice at the time was principally securities, fraud, class actions, a little bit of environmental, and also a developing antitrust practice. And I loved the people. I loved the small nature of the firm and the types of work that we were able to do. And it was a very hands-on environment where you worked very closely with the partners. So you were learning on the spot, in contrast to, at that time, my peers who went to big law. It was very hierarchical. So you came in, maybe you first did some research for your first year, maybe you got to write a memo your second year, and it wasn't until you were maybe third, fourth, fifth year that you were actually even getting into a courtroom or being in deposition, and that just wasn't the case for me at that firm. And then when I had my eldest son now, he really prompted me to start thinking outside the box. And I ultimately left that firm with remorse and to go to what was then the largest plaintiff's class action firm in the nation, and had a phenomenal reputation, also had the bandwidth to fulfill a real desire and destiny that I had in my own head, which was to become a leader. And that was something that really very few firms, I think, were prepared for a woman who was also a mom and wanted to be a leader in the law. How do you manage all of that? And the firm that I went to really had some of those resources readily available. Yeah. And I was there for a very long time. I joined that firm in 1997 and I stayed until 2019. The firm had quite a number of transitions that it had to go through in some instances and chose to go through in others. And for those transitions, many of which were quite challenging, and I was in management beginning in 2004, I learned far greater skills beyond the practice of law. I learned what it meant to understand the business of the practice of law, how to run a law firm, how to consider marketing, and how marketing, when you think about it, how marketing and communications have changed since 1997 for any kind of business, right? Like social media didn't exist. I don't think there was such a thing as a podcast. I doubt it. Yeah. So I really enjoyed being at that firm. There are people to this day in my life from that firm, from all aspects of profession, whether they are lawyers, they are staff, they are people that are very closely connected to me, and I feel very honored by their grace. And then in 2019, I just decided it was time. My name had actually gone up on the door for a minute over there, and I just was in a different place. And I think one of the things that lawyers and business people sometimes lose sight of is that life is happening for you, not to you. Yeah. And when you consider that there just may be these moments that are opportunities for transition, and it was right around that time that I had become, my husband and I had an empty nest. And so it seemed like a really appropriate time to take the leap and give it a go. And it's been very, very exciting. It's also been very, very challenging. One of the things I've shared with you is I am a woman of multiple hustles, side hustles at all times. I coach people about having side hustles. And I truly believe that for firms to really succeed, you need to have people who fulfill different parts of the practice and the business of the practice of law, and who can dedicate real time and focus to the ones at which they excel at best. And they may excel at all of them. However, it's very difficult to be the number one trial lawyer, the number one business generator, and the managing partner who deals with HR, finance, communications, marketing, branding, real estate, and so on. There are only so many hours in the day. And so I'm a person who, I look at my career, even going forward, it wouldn't be out of thought for me to make yet another pivot just because of opportunities that I see. Everything that I do is a strategic move.
Yeah, absolutely. There are those big moments. For us, it was COVID. kind of creating this new, unique world where we could work virtually. And so our business really changed from a community-oriented business to more of a, working with clients nationwide, which was really, really interesting. So you kind of got a taste of what it was like to run a law firm, being in a management position. When you broke away and started your practice, was it just you at the beginning, or did you
Oh,
start
no.
with a team? How did that transpire?
Sure. So I brought along, I shouldn't say I brought along, a team joined me. I'm very team oriented. So a number of my colleagues from my prior firm came along with me, including most significantly my law partner today, AJ De Bartolomeo. I've known AJ for the better part of my career. We had actually not worked together up until she came through at my prior firm, joined my prior firm for a fairly quick stint soon before we then launched Tadler Law. And I had known her in pretty significant spaces where she had a very good reputation, highly respected, and she knew me that way too. But it was one of those things where you cross paths and maybe you had a glass of wine or a cup of coffee or you were on a panel together. And as soon as we started working together, we just knew that it felt really right. There is this very complementary set of skills, and we also know how to encourage the other to be bigger and bolder, and also to graciously tease out when there's something that's maybe not quite right. And I think that really is the definition of a good partnership. I think sometimes that concept gets lost because law firms so often are partnerships. And yet, if you thought about the word partnership outside the scope of the legal context, what would that mean for you, right?
Sure. Yeah. You need to have that really good chemistry. I know you're really, you talk a lot about your core values, and we love the concept of core values. We're big fans of the EOS system and implementing that in business.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. So you have developed what you call your critical C's. Tell us a little bit about what those are and what those mean for you.
Sure. So I've played around with how to create terminology around them, and I did land on the critical C's maybe about 18 months ago. Previously, I was using like C cubed. However, I want to have the ability to add more C's in case I find some word that I really like. So the core ones, though, the critical C's are clear communication, conscientiousness, and credibility. And I have found throughout my professional career and my personal life that when you clearly communicate and you really are attentive to detail and you maintain your credibility, the relationships that you're having with others, whether it's a personal relationship or it might be even in the relational situation you might be having with a client, an adversary, a judge, all of those C's going together will most likely ensure success. And the credibility component resonated with me more than 20 years ago. I probably first talked about it at the Sedona conference and said, if you lose credibility with a judge at the beginning of a case, you could have the best law, you could have the best facts, you could have the best clients, and still there is that vulnerability sitting there. Yeah. Because you lost credibility by either making a mistake and not owning up to it, or perhaps not being really forthright about something. And obviously, we have responsibilities to represent our client and their interests ethically and responsibly. And, we try to do so with vigor, of course. Yeah. It's also important to maintain your reputation so that when you say something, it's credible and it's it's emblematic that you did the work. You really paid attention to the details. And when I started thinking about that as I was raising our children, as my husband and I were raising our children, I started realizing that those C's apply to raising children. And I began to realize, right, that those C's also apply to relationships that I have with my extended family, with my friends. When I talk about friends, I'm also very honest. I say there are friends who are there for sometimes a reason, a season, and or a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And you tease some of that out in life experience when you apply all of those critical C's. And when you're a leader at a firm and you have a team, and some people, of course, are reporting up through some, levels of partners and associates and staff, et cetera, you need to make sure that you lead by example so that you can have the expectation of the critical C's from them. And then if they don't apply them, if they don't deploy them, you know that there's a problem. And the problem begins with you as the leader. I have to ask myself, where did I err? Where did I miss a cue? See if I can lean in and help make things better. Because I do believe that leaders have a responsibility to first try to solve. And that includes with, an employee who maybe suddenly things aren't going so well. Try to do your best to solve and also see if there's a problem you haven't identified that's at the core. And if you're applying the critical C's and you still don't get the results you're looking for, you've done your best. And hopefully, even if there is a separation with that person, hopefully that person can leave understanding that it was handled with grace.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I love how it ties into who you are, because core values really should be a reflection of our identity. Not these pie in the sky ideals necessarily, but who we truly are and what makes us very unique. Now, Ariana, you've described yourself as a business person, a businesswoman, which I love. I love that you've adopted that identity for yourself. A lot of law firm owners struggle to get there. So in building your business, your law practice, you're not just gaining clients and doing work, but you're building an asset, you're building an entity, right? So I'm curious how you're perhaps thinking about building value in your firm, and what systems, marketing, or leadership changes are really paying off for you.
Sure. So as I said, I never see anything as static, right? So the fact that my name is on the door today doesn't mean that someday I wouldn't make a transition to do something differently, depending on where I feel my energy is best applied. And as we know, energy flows where focus goes, right?
Yeah, I love that.
I can't take credit for that. That's like Tony Robbins' quote.
Oh, okay.
And if you think about it, especially if you're kind of sitting in the muck, or you're not really sure which step to take, or that you feel really distracted or overwhelmed by too many things sitting on your desk, it's a really good idea to step back and decide, where are you going to put your focus? Because wherever you do, that is where the energy is going to flow. Mm-hmm. And so for our firm, we have focused on quite a number of things. During the launch of our firm, this was just 6 months, just maybe 9 months before the shutdown for COVID here in New York. And I was insistent when we were launching the firm that we would launch with the best on-trend technology, hardware, software, all of it. I had the benefit of being, tech oriented because of my prowess in the e-discovery space. And so I just said, if we're going to have to invest in equipment and software, let's just get it right from the beginning. Yes, it's going to cost a little bit more. It's better to do it now. And who could have imagined. Nobody, that suddenly there would be this shutdown. And I remember exactly where I was. Actually, when that shutdown occurred, I had been at the Women-Owned Law Symposium in Philadelphia, and people were already on alert that something was happening. And I had to come from Philadelphia on Amtrak through Penn Station. And it was in that moment, I mean, it was like a movie. I can still see that movie in my head. And we became remote the next day.
Yeah.
Right. And we were also really fortunate because given that we were using a certain set of tools, I don't want to endorse any particular provider. People can probably figure it out just from the discussion. We were using an entire suite of tools that most law firms use for their communications and their documents and their power decks and all those things. And we had a relationship contact because we were a new business. And just 2 or 3 weeks before, they had invited us to their on-site space, our entire team, and we learned the additional messaging and collaboration tools for an entire day.
Wow.
And so then all of a sudden there's the shutdown, and here it is. We had already, I wouldn't say mastered that part of the tool. We were leaps and bounds, faster and more adept than our peers. And we also were extremely well equipped for all of the video conferencing and remote communication. So we had colleagues calling us, and including competitors, saying, how do you know how to do this? Who do I call? And in many instances, we said, just call us. We'll help you. We'll help you. Like, this is a world epidemic. We'll figure it out. And, who would have believed that we would be doing this the way we're doing it now, right?
Yeah, exactly. So much has changed as a result of that. Ariana, a lot of law firm owners that I meet are voracious readers. And I'm curious, is there a book that you're reading right now that you're really enjoying?
So, yes, I am currently reading The Psychology of Money.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, do you know that book?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, good. Well, it definitely should resonate with you, the Lawyer Millionaire.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember the author's name. It's like
Morgan Housel.
Yeah. Thank you. I've actually sometimes taken a screenshot of an excerpt and shared it with others. And one of the things that I have done, I work with a wonderful business development coach by the name of Steve Fretzen. He's fabulous, and he only works with lawyers, and he teaches a sales-free selling type of approach to business development. And over the years, I kept trying to finesse, how would I curate good, solid relationships that are not necessarily transactional. They're not necessarily transactional from the outset, and they may never be transactional. However, the relationships will be curated in such a way that you'll either be paying it forward, or somebody will be sending you business, or it all comes around and goes around, right? Yeah. And so one of the things that I adopted was creating this sort of path of, when I meet somebody, what are the steps that I take? How do I stay connected to them? And ultimately, when I reach a certain step in my process, I send them something. Yeah. More often than not, I send a book.
Oh, nice. I love that.
And one of the books is The Psychology of Money. Another book currently, which has a lot more to do probably with my public speaking and coaching, is The Let Them Theory that Mel Robbins just released. Steve Fretzen just released a new book, which he created based upon his podcast. He has a podcast, as you know, and I'm one of the chapters in there.
Oh, fantastic.
About professionalism, the art of professionalism. And then there is a gentleman by the name of Walt Hampton. I don't know if you know him.
I know Walt. Yeah.
You do. Oh my gosh, he's so great. So Walt is as you know, he is a lawyer by trade. He's also proven himself to be a time master, and he has a book about time mastery. And then I'm currently reading a book, The Keeper of Happy Things. I think that's what it's called, which is fiction. And I have one more thing about reading, which maybe would be interesting to listeners. Crazy. So I have one of my kids has found reading to be really a struggle. He always has. He has ADHD. He's very, very creative, and getting him to sit down and read is challenging. So we have a sort of an agreement, or I don't know a pact, where we read a book together.
Okay.
And so we're not literally, next to each other. He's 25. He lives across the country. And I had suggested this many a time when he was younger, and sometimes we'd be in fits and starts just to get him through his reading comprehension. He just came back to me in this past year and said, I want to get back to that. And I feel like I need something that will really get us started. And I said, okay, you pick, because I've picked James Clear Atomic Habits, right? I mean, I've picked the books that I think, this will help focus. And he picked Ian Rand's Atlas Shrugged.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And I said, you're kidding, right? And he said, no. He goes, I want to read this book. I said, I have been given this book as a gift at least 3 times, and I've given the book away. I did not read it. He's like, well, that's the book I want to read. So we are in the middle of Atlas Shrugged. Regardless of what your politics or sense of capitalism is, okay, that's what we're currently reading.
Very cool. So you got a lot of books that you're reading right now, which is it's really great. Yeah, so The Psychology of Money. We actually read that book last quarter in our book club and had just a really phenomenal discussion around that with other law firm owners. And this quarter, we're reading Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike.
Oh, yes. Great.
Yeah. You should definitely put that on your list. Just a really inspiring story of grit and determination, because you hear his story and you think Nike, this wonderful, amazing brand, but Phil Knight struggled for so many years with this fledgling company. He started out selling shoes out of the back of his car, basically.
Yes.
And to go from that to where he is and where Nike is today is just really, really phenomenal. So yeah, I would highly recommend that for you.
So there's another book that I'm listening to, like I do, whether I'm walking or running. I can't remember the author's name. I don't know that he's the CEO of Chipotle anymore. He's a lawyer by trade. He became first the general counsel, then the CEO, and he wrote a book. It's like something and more guac, a little twist on the guacamole piece. And he tells the story of how he really transformed Chipotle based upon work culture and the conceptualization of mutual respect and understanding the roles played by every person within the organization, and ultimately crafting solutions so that their promotion or even supervisory led hiring was from within. Why? Because they were constantly teaching their core values.
Yeah.
And everybody felt like they were part of a team. And as I said to you earlier, I really am a team-oriented person. I was a lacrosse goalie, and that gave me the benefit of, defending the goal. Mm-hmm. People often don't realize that when you are a goalie, you also see the entire field at all times, both as the team is leading towards the opposite goal and as people are coming to attack you. And it gives you this very different perspective sometimes I call it, it's like you're the air traffic controller, right? And wanting to make sure that everybody has that role or opportunity or chance to make their contribution to the win or to protecting the home.
Very cool. I love that. I played soccer, and I was a goalie for a little bit, but I wasn't any good. So,
well, I laugh. Why was I a goalie? I was a goalie because I really did not have the speed to be one of the phenoms on the field.
Okay.
However, I did have and still do the strength and endurance to play all out and get, go all the way to the end. So
very cool. I'm curious, do you have a favorite lesson or anecdote from Psychology of Money that really stuck out to you?
Oh, so this is something that I've actually been working on in connection with a book that I'm writing that has nothing to do with money per se. There's a whole section about compounding, right? The benefit of compounding.
Right. Warren Buffett.
Yes, Warren Buffett, correct. And when you can encourage people to invest early, even if it is a little amount, the increase in value of those dollars over time is truly astronomical. It's almost like people can't even understand it unless you show them with a graph, right, how it will rise over time. And as I shared with you, I do have 2 adult sons. They're both in their 20s at this time. And we encouraged them very early on, once they graduated from college, we said, look, you have to learn right now. There has to be some amount of money that you're going to put aside. You're going to go without. You're not going to buy the extra whatever that would be a nice, fun thing to have or to drink or to eat or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you just put that amount of money away and don't think about it, and you give it a year, watch what happens. And now, one of my guys is 8 years past that, and the other is almost 5 years past that, and they are astounded, and now they're hooked. So, right? I mean, it's pretty amazing. And now, thankfully, people are teaching, and I don't think we were really taught this, how important it is to just start saving early, right? Because you may not be able to ever really you won't be able to recapture that, those dollars early on. So I've taken that concept to talk about in this book that I'm writing about a formula, how to live a happy and highly effective life focused on Gen Zs and millennials. We all have the same equity in time. We have 24 hours a day. And at some point in time, there are things that you should do to be your best self, meaning to care for yourself, your body, mind, and soul. And we have a lot of people who say there's just not enough time. There is enough time. It's a question of how you apply your time, right? Yeah. And so I say, imagine if you know and or want, we hope, to get some exercise or movement in your life. You love music and you are a spiritual person. You can compound that in one routine, right? You can go for a walk or a run and you can listen to music that is spiritual. You've just compounded 3 elements of your life. And the value, the output, the ROI that you get from that is so enormous that you feel fulfilled even more than just having the endorphins from the run.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually was thinking about this as I was reading that chapter. The idea of compounding your life, basically, because it's the same. I think is it Atomic Habits or some other book where they talk about 1% improvement each day, right? If you can make just a small improvement each day, you might have a monumental task, but if you can chip away at it a little bit each day, then the results are dramatic over time.
That's right.
It's so powerful.
That's right. So Atomic Habits, I read it and I also listened to it.
Okay.
And I would encourage people who have the ability to process information orally, and I mean AURALY. If you have that ability, one of the things I love about authors who have a good narrative voice is when you listen to their material, you actually receive it in a far deeper way. And James Clear reads the book, and it's really very impactful. I found it far more impactful listening to him than reading the book and using a highlighter and then not going back to that.
Yeah, I love to listen to books myself. I find I retain, especially if the author is the narrator. That just makes such a big difference, definitely.
Yes.
Well, Ariana, unfortunately, we're out of time, but this has been just such a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate you coming on the call with us today. One more question for you, and that is, what impact do you want your firm and your story to have on the world going forward?
Oh my, that's a deep question. The impact that I want to have is that I came to this place and space and did my very best and hopefully created a space and place for others to do far greater things because of the opportunities that we've created, and also through the encouragement that we've given people to pave their own path.
I love that. Well, Ariana, if our listeners want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Well, you can go to tadlerlaw.com, and you can also look me up at Ariana Tadler Speaks, and either way is fine. And really the easiest place to find me these days usually is on LinkedIn. I'm a fairly active poster there, and I'm also on Instagram if that's your place of choice.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure, and I love what you're doing. It's really exciting.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, a big thank you to Ariana Tadler for sharing her insights on leadership, business building, and living with intention. To learn more about her, check out the show notes for the links. If there's one thing to remember, it's this: real leadership starts with personal responsibility. When things go sideways, ask yourself, where did I miss a cue? At the Lawyer Millionaire, we believe the most successful law firm owners aren't just practicing law, they're building assets, developing people, and leading with clarity. That's how you create long-term wealth, impact, and freedom. And that's exactly what we help our members do every day. Want to learn more about how we can help you build a business and a life that you love? Visit lawyermillionaire.com and download the first chapter of my book, The Lawyer Millionaire, for free. And if you're ready to grow alongside a community of successful, motivated law firm owners just like yourself, join our book club for free also. You can find the link in the show notes. Who is the Lawyer Millionaire? It's you, my friend. Own it and live it. I'm your host, Darren Wurz. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.